Welcome to the Beauty Inspires Beauty podcast, where I've made it my mission to help beauty professionals, creative, and independent entrepreneurs like you find the tools, inspiration, and motivation to unlock the abundant life you know you are meant to be living. Each week, you can expect epic guests and solo episodes sharing every tool, trick, and skill set I've learned on my own 20-year journey to grow and scale your life and business. I'm your host, Jessica Burgio, former salon owner turned beauty business mentor and crazy multi-passionate entrepreneur, here to share incredible stories and insight about how others got started and the unconventional path they took to get there. My goal is to inspire you to reach your business and life goals with confidence, to achieve your dream life through creating non-negotiables and boundaries without sacrificing your personal well-being and relationships. I know firsthand how real burnout can be, so if you're ready to stop the overwhelm and get clear and focused, you're in the right place, babe. Let's jump right in. Hello, and welcome back to the Beauty Inspires Beauty podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Burgio, and we have an epic guest for you today. She comes all the way from Bali by way of Australia, correct?
Close. I'm a Kiwi and I live in Bali. Yeah, New Zealander.
Right. So Kate is the host of the incredible She Leads a New Future podcast and founder of She Leads Live, which is an Australian and New Zealand #1 leadership empowerment event. She is a true mentor to women worldwide to unlock their potential, grow their big vision, and become who they are here to be. I love that. You truly believe leadership is already within each of us. It's something that just needs to be activated. And I really never thought of it that way. So I can't wait to dive in with this. Welcome to the show, Kate.
Thank you so much for having me, Jess.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for making the time. We're on opposite sides of the world right now. So it's 9:30 in the morning for her and 6:30 at night for me. And Kate and I met in a mastermind that I was coaching in and she was part of. And it's always interesting when, as I'm doing this coaching work, I get put with people who are at a higher level than I am. And I'm never afraid to admit that I'm in situations like that. But the whole point of coaching is connecting and helping someone be held accountable, work through whatever it is that's coming up for them. But through that, we started this relationship and we've stayed in touch, and it's been a blessing to get to know you and watch you from afar. I definitely respect all the things that you're doing. I was just telling her, I was watching her daughter because her daughter just moved off to New Zealand at the age of
18
to go her entrepreneurial journey. So Kate, your story is pretty epic and I feel like we could talk about it for days, but I'd like to kind of reverse engineer how you guys are in Bali now. I want to know, when was the turning point when you guys, I know you went to visit, right, Bali, that you guys decided that where you were, you kind of either outgrown or it wasn't fitting what you needed in your life anymore, and you guys decided to make the big Bali?
In a nutshell, we were actually thriving where we were and we were loving where we were. So it really was a bit of a curveball. I just went on a holiday, and 4-day holiday, day 2, I'm like, oh my God, this place. And I was just so moved by the place. And then while I was there, I kept seeing, wonder, like, what would it be like to live here? And then, I'd be walking along the street and see a soccer field and imagine my son playing soccer there. Or I would walk in and I saw this incredible school and I was thinking, I wonder what it would be like if my daughter went there. So I think a few days of continually seeing myself and our family live there, by the time I went home, I was like, oh my God, family, sit down. Mama's got a crazy idea. And within 2 weeks, we had booked our flights one way and we sold everything. And it was such a risk because our entire business model was based on monthly live events in person in New Zealand, where our client base was. So to move to Bali with one-way flights, and people think it's really cheap here, and there are a lot of things that are cheap, but schooling, like we were paying 50 grand a year for the schooling here. So it wasn't like we had to make big changes, big decisions to be able to pull this off back when we moved here. So, it was risky. It was all the things like, what if it failed? What if it's just like, my God, I just had like a whim. But the thing that kept and has driven me since back when I used to work as a registered nurse, and I nursed people who were at the end of their lives, and I would constantly hear conversations about regret. I thought to myself, well, what if we don't go, and in the future we say to each other, fuck, imagine if we had have gone to Bali, what would it have been like? And so even though we didn't know why we were going, and I don't really think there's any why, I think we do just carve our path and we just have it work and we make new decisions. But, looking back 7 years later, I don't think we wouldn't have grown to the extent that we have if we hadn't have pushed ourselves to basically jump off the cliff, cut ties with the business model we had. So we had to figure shit out. It was like building the plane fast as we were flying down. So we were forced to create a new business model, and that really instigated so much growth by moving here that we hadn't have foreseen. So it was really cool because my daughter just, as you said, moved back to New Zealand. And when she did, she actually thanked me just before she left. She said, "Mum, I just want to thank you for moving us here." She said, "I couldn't see it at the time, but now looking back, I can see this expansive view that I have because I've been growing up. I've grown up with multicultural friends and with different viewpoints on life. So I just want to say thank you."
Oh,
cool.
And I can go now. I've done my job as a mother.
I feel
my job. Oh my gosh. Oh, I can't wait. I hope one day my son says the same thing to me. Okay, so this now, because I know a little bit of your backstory, this move had to come from a place. This is just me guessing that you've gone through so much in your life prior to you coming from being a nurse and getting into this leadership role. I know you did a lot of things to grow that community while you were still nursing and doing that community stuff there. I read you were doing these things in the office, or you were getting people together after work. But because you had gone through things when you were younger, I feel like, do you think that made it a little bit easier for you to come home and make that decision to just like, I will regret this if I don't do it, or I don't want to regret this, so therefore I'm going to do it? Because you say it, and people are probably listening like, yeah, right, I could never, like, sounds great, must be nice. Or, the thought process of picking up your whole family, not just you, and moving to another country, like, mind-blowing. So where did that decision-making ability come from? Because I feel like you are very good at making the decisions that need to be made.
Yeah, decisive. Decisiveness is a huge muscle that I didn't used to actually have. And I've definitely had pivotal moments in my life where I've just had to say to myself, enough is enough, and it's time to actually use my life and not have it be wasted. Just a bit of context for whoever's listening. I've had anorexia and I had a meth addiction. And the final kind of real turning point for my life was, lying on the ground with a needle hanging out of my arm. And that night I thought I was going to die. And so that was a decision right then and there, was I have to use my life for something. I have to use these experiences. And so I guess I've got quite a big context, that then coupled with the nursing, and then just, seeing people dying and having kind of had an unfulfilled dreams in their heart, and having not been true to themselves. And I don't want that. And I guess I consider death a lot. I know that might sound a little bit morbid, but considering our own mortality and the fact that, newsflash, we're actually going to end up in the ground. Kind of pausing just to let that sink in for a moment. And I know it's like Captain Obvious, but that is the reality of it. And no one's going to remember any of this. And it doesn't kind of matter how even big we think we get. People still aren't going to remember us in 100 years' time. It's actually not as significant as what we're kind of making it out to be. So I was thinking, worst case scenario, and that's often these couple of things that I play out. One is, will I regret not giving it a go and seeing where it went? And then the second thing is, worst case scenario, what's going to happen? So worst case scenario, we just fly back to New Zealand and we just buy some more furniture from the fucking op shop because we sold everything. And I was like, worst case scenario, can I deal with that? And I think we've got to look at those two paths. And when you weigh up, okay, worst case scenario, we fly back. I actually took an emergency credit card over, and it was like a break in case of emergency for emergency flights home if the shit crumbles down. And I got to say, it was intense at times. It was so fucking bad at times. But we just managed to not break the emergency credit card and keep going. But the payoffs were huge. And I think we have to consider that if we're just making decisions from fear or a just how things have always been, we don't get to grow and see what's beyond that. And I think we have so much capacity, so much capacity. Life can be so juicy. That's the other thing, like really ridiculously juicy. But we've got to go through journeys of risk and obstacles to really get ourselves into positions that it can just get juicier and juicier.
Oh, I love that so much. Like I could just listen to you talk forever because you've gone through so much in your life, and I feel like you've lived a couple of lives, and you're still so young. It's like, so through all of that, but you started the live events long before you moved to Bali. You had your whole other business before you moved over there and did this huge transition. So how did you know that you were meant to get on these stages and lead women? Like, what is it, the driving force that gets you up or keeps you up at night thinking somebody needs to hear this message? There are people out here that are suffering and need me to lead them or show them or teach them that there's a better way, or to unlock whatever it is that they're playing small or holding back from.
Yeah. Oh, it literally, and I know this sounds cheesy that, there was a pivotal moment in my life, but the reality was like that moment, like lying there with the needle hanging out. It was since then, like I made a decision that, and I think it was, I had to make this decision. In reflection, I can see it because it gave me some meaning from the experiences that I had, and it made me feel a bit more purposeful at a time where I had just sort of like no purpose and hope. But the meaning I made was, what if I went through those things so that I had a unique experience and perspective so that I could help some others? So the earlier stages, I started talking and speaking up and started helping and coaching for free. And I coached for free for 2 years and I didn't see any of this. And then we started running little events that we also like charged nothing, or a koha, which in New Zealand means donation. So you could just come along, and it kind of like helped offset some of our costs with hiring venues. But then here's the thing, I guess each step of the way, although I hadn't seen where things are at now with running our big, huge events, each step of the way, I would just push myself to the next thing that I felt called to. And push myself to the next thing, and then really playing full out at that level. And that used to terrify me because I've had incredible anxiety, and I used to be so anxious to talk in front of 4 people, but I played full out at the level of talking in front of 4 people. And I remember going off and having like diarrhea in the toilet. Like I'd have to put people on a break because I was just like had the shits because I was so freaking nervous. So I played full out at that level, and then you develop a level of confidence there, and then you see the next stage. And then so you go full out there and you develop a level of confidence there, and then you see the next stage. So continuing to push. I mean, I still have anxiety now. I still have self-doubt, but what I've developed over the years is a huge amount of confidence. That's the thing, that when we put ourselves in the next level, we develop confidence and a huge capacity at the next level. So yeah, that's really exciting because now I'm now clear about like what the next 10 years is going to look like. And it's really exciting. Like I'm going to go back to the word juicy. It's juicy. I'm seeing, this She Leads Live, which is the event in Australia that I run, which has like a celebrity speaker lineup, and like it's got a really great brand name. I'm seeing it now as like the name that's synonymous with leadership down this end of the world. And then once we establish it throughout Australia and New Zealand, then we'll be taking it, to the next step. So yeah, I'm really excited. And the cool thing is that it's a very unique conversation. And what I wanted to do was have a kind of like an experience for women where they come along, and it's not the hype rah-rah. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's not hype rah-rah that it's like you're pumped up with motivation, and then in the weeks then you've got to go back to reality, and you're almost disappointed with your life, and you look at your husband and you're like, oh my God, you're not like that big excited. So I wanted to not do that. I wanted to have an experience where people truly got how extraordinary they are right where they are right now in their life. Not like, oh, you're extraordinary in a year's time once you do the work on yourself. Like, no, you're extraordinary right now. You've got gifts, even probably the things that you're thinking you need to change about yourself, AKA that was me. I shouldn't have had those things happen to me, yet those were the very things that are actually my gifts in a way. So like really having people have some big shifts at the event, and then going home to their life with really being able to relate to their life in a more empowered experience, if that makes sense. So that the growth and the changes are things that ripple effect and grow over time, not wear off after the event. So, we did our last event and we followed up with people a year later to see where they're at. And it was really cool because we could see that the growth had kept growing from there. So it was really cool. Yeah. So that's what we're up to.
That alone impacting people's lives further than just for the day or for the weekend or for the week.
Yeah.
How many events have you been to where you do leave with the raw motivation? And while that is good in the moment, yes, it does often leave you feeling like, oh, I'll have to go back to that now, or what am I meant to do? There aren't tangible steps or tools that you're given, but showing people what they're already made of, what they already have inside of them. And then what you started the conversation with off, whenever we pressed record around, we're all going to die. What do you not want to regret? If you sit in regret, if you sit in I don't have, or in scarcity, or in victim mode, like if you look inside, we all have things that we're good at. We all have gifts that we can share with the world. But most people aren't born being told that. We don't grow up being told, oh, you're unique, you're special. We grow up being told you're too loud, be quiet, stay in your lane, play small, don't be too showy because you'll make other people feel bad. Like we're conditioned. And then even at a cellular level, when your mom is pregnant with you, there's things that she's told that you get stuck with. That I just learned about that through my breathwork facilitation class. I'm like, great. So not only do I have my own shit, I have to take her shit with me too. It's just wild. So to know that I can show up at an event like yours and just be comforted, because often we want to be seen, heard, and told that we're okay exactly the way we are, that there isn't a bunch of shit we need to fix. Because I think as women, we're constantly seeking, what can we fix? Hair, our skin, plump the lips up, put the filter on the Instagram. Like you can't even show up as yourself anymore because it's not enough. It's not good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes the difference actually when we really get that who we are. And look, I almost want to slow this conversation down because I feel like this can sound really cliched, but I really want whoever's listening to this conversation to really listen to this and really listen to it through the eyes of how does this actually relate to me and my experience right now. Like genuinely, I want to speak to you as a listener right now, genuinely, you, as you are right now in the life that you're living and the journey that you're on and the unique perspective that you have through the experiences that you've been through and your personality and the things that are calling to you, none of that is accidental. Like for real. And sometimes the parts of ourselves like that can feel a bit quirky or like shouldn't have been like this or I'm not supposed to be like that. Sometimes those are a part of our superpower. And if you are even like in the online space, you actually need that stuff to come through. And sometimes we kind of whitewash our personalities a little bit, or we, think this part is not okay. But, I just really get that we are exactly who we're supposed to be and where we're supposed to be. And then when we do that, we stop wasting the energy on trying to constantly fix ourselves or trying to get rid of the self-doubt. Tell you what, I've done every mode of personal development and stuff out there. I've 10, 15 years of working on myself and just certain things. And I still haven't got rid of the bloody self-doubt and anxiety. Like I still have it. Like I go to the next level and it comes up there. So you know what I've just realized through all this whole process? It doesn't matter how many swish patterns I've done and I'm an NLP trainer myself. I was like, it was a few years ago. I was like, it's not going away. Fuck. So guess what? I'm going to stop trying to make it. There we go. That just saves 40% of my internal mental space. Wicked. So guess what? All of that energy can be focused on the shit I want to create.
Amen. Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so true. When you take off the pressure to, like I said, change or fix or think that imposter syndrome is going to go away, because every level that you reach, you're going to be surrounded by higher level people. Like, it's which are going to push you to get out of your comfort zone, and you're going to feel feelings of self-doubt, scared, anxiety. And imposter syndrome is something we talked about. I just got off a huge live event today, and Dean Gracioso was the speaker talking about imposter syndrome and getting sweaty and nervous before he talks. And he said he's the biggest introvert ever, and he still gets nervous to talk in front of, like you said, 4 people or 1 million people, which they're about to do a big event. And he's like, it never goes away, so get the fuck over it.
Yes, exactly. It's so cool because all of that time and that energy, because whatever we are spinning our wheels on the inside of us, whatever we're spinning our wheels on is energy that we could spend in like thinking about what we're going to create, or some solutions to the big thing that we're launching. So, it's just, I think it's really important. Yeah.
Me too. Okay, so I am huge on non-negotiables. You hear me talk about this, talk about it on the podcast, on the Instagram. I see a lot, I watch you a lot on your stories, and I see you and your husband have routines that you've kept going in your relationship to ensure that you're staying married, that you still like each other, and more than like each other, that you're still in love and want to spend time with each other. And then I see you do a lot of personal self-care. So can you talk to us about your personal non-negotiables? And then because you've been married for so long and you've had a relationship that's had its ups and downs, can you share some non-negotiables that you guys share in your relationship as well to keep what you have going?
Absolutely. So we've been together for 17 years, and seriously, we could have easily divorced a million times over. And one of the things that we do that is absolutely non-negotiable, and I think it's pivotal to us, is that we have time apart. So once a month or more, one of us goes and stays in a hotel for 4 or 5 days. And so it's like so important, so important. And like, let's say if I go away on my own, and when I go away on my own, I get to be Kate, independent of the relationship. I get to have my own, I mean, we always have our own thinking, but I get to be with my own thinking, and I'm not around the family, and I do a lot there. And then when I come home, I've made new insights and fresh perspectives and insights and breakthroughs that I can bring back to the relationship and the conversation. And so that's the first part, is that I get to bring freshness back to the conversation. But also, because we've been apart, like, distance and separation relationship is one of the key factors of desire. And if we, the fact that we live and work together and we're always at home working together, if we are around each other the whole time, it's easy to get frustrated with the small things that your partner does. And just like, oh my God, it's so frustrating. Whereas, no, they're just being themselves. And so having that time apart, like, it just creates freshness just by the pure nature that you've got separation. So that's really important. Like, the other thing we do is we move house. We move house about every 9 months so that we've got a fresh environment. And and that's just so key. I couldn't handle living in the one place for longer than 9 months. We're just going through that process again. We're moving in the next 3 weeks. And we've got a bit of a process around that. So when we move from an old house, we actually look at what are the things we want to leave behind in that old house and the old energy. And it can be energies that we're going to drop off, or it can be like ways of being or relating, both individually and together. And then when we go to the new place, it's actually creating like the next chapter, new environment, new energy, and new routines, new just whatever is needed new in the next space. Huge difference.
Wow. I could just go on that and then just apply that to every aspect. And it's funny because I've probably moved 15 times in the last 20 years, and people think I'm crazy, but I feel like I kind of do that for myself too.
Yeah.
Same thing happens. And when I feel like I'm getting a little like stir crazy and I feel like things need to shift and change, that's when I know I need to move. Like that place, outgrowing it, or that place isn't serving what you need anymore. But so
absolutely
hard time with change and allowing that to happen. So, I mean, first and foremost, how did you guys even come to the conclusion that, hey, somebody needs to leave for a week? Did it come from a fight? Did you leave because you were upset and so someone took a week off and you were like, okay, now you can come home because I miss you? Or how did you guys decide to do that?
Okay, so one of both. So first of all, I started going away about 5-6 years ago. I started going away for what I called Queen's Weekends. So once a month I went away just for myself, and it was all about me getting away on my own just to recharge. So I had little kids, not little, they weren't little, but two kids, business, lots of stuff. Yeah. So that started the regular going away, and then Hinari knew that he needed to go away, so he started going away as well. But back then, about 6 or 7 years ago, we were still going through quite a lot of, I would say, headbutting in our relationship. And it was around about the time that the first couple of years that we moved to Bali. And I've got to say, those first 2 years were so intense here. So we headbutted a lot. Mm-hmm. And so around that time, we started creating times of separation to have times that we kind of, I don't know, just like everything from cool down to have our own space to all of those things. And then it just sort of organically came from that, because we realized like, oh, this is really actually very useful. And I reckon actually a lot of relationships could be because I'm not a advocate of all relationships that should stay together. I left Bailey's dad because it was not the right partnership. Yet I know that Hinari and I have got a great thing going. And then we've also at the same time had a lot of things we've had to work through to be able to have a quality relationship together. So we've got core values and everything that aligns at the base. But if we didn't work through a lot of our stuff together, we would have a miserable marriage despite the core values being aligned. So this has been key in being able to get away from each other. And now we just love it. And so it is just literally a part of what we'll always do. And so, you know, we're at the phase of our life where eldest has left home. We've got our youngest who's just about to turn 14. And we're really looking at the next phase of our life. I'm almost 40. I'm so excited. And so we're looking at what's the next chapter? And, you know, after our little one leaves, we'll definitely be doing a lot of travel. And like our freedom is very important to both of us. And we want to have a future where, so for example, let's say if I want to go to Europe for a month on my own and write a book and live in Italy, then I can do that. And you know, our relationship gets to be the solid base of support and partnership and ride or die that we get to have together. But we get to live our own independent lives as well. And for me and for Hinari, just our makeup, it's so important. Neither of us like being entangled with like another person. And it kind of feels like the best of both worlds, to have a strong relationship plus living a fully independent life, essentially.
I'm sure
if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. I think anyone who's attracted to my energy and listening to this podcast probably is relating to this so hard right now. You know, I am a pretty independent, strong-minded person, and I find that it attracts a certain type of person in a partner, and then that's not always given. So I think that might be key to a lot of people seeking new relationships as they get older, whether it's for partnership, to create a family or whatever, but opening your mind to the possibility of doing what works best for you as a couple versus what you're traditionally supposed to do, what's not okay, you know. So I feel like that's why I think I admire you so much, is because you guys do kind of roll at the beat of your own drum, and it's based solely on staying married. It's not based on, oh, I need my space. It's more like, I want to make this work. Let's do whatever we can. And these are the things we found that have worked. So it's working. So let's keep doing them.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Like at the end of the day, he's my absolute best friend on the planet. There's no one else I have better conversations with. And one of our both favorite things is we hop into bed at night and talk for like an hour, still find each other sexy as well, you know, like this, and there's still sexual attraction there. So it's not, there's all of that stuff, but to have independence inside of a long-term relationship, I actually think is really key. And then just like a little summary point of the conversation we've just had is to create newness in a long-term relationship. I think future-proofs the relationship, because if we're just relating to the person as how we've always related to them, then we stay in the roles that we get into, and that becomes such a lid, because it's like, this is who I am to you, this is who you are to me, and there's no way of seeing or relating to each other any different. But to put some of these things in place or work out for yourself what actually works, and you could play with that, then it creates newness, and newness is part of growth.
Okay, you're speaking to my soul right now, because this really is relatable to what I'm going through. We're going to continue that conversation on the side. Well, maybe we'll do a second podcast on relationships, because I feel like I just turned 40, and, you know, say we have a lot in common, and we could wrap on that for hours. But so what are your personal non-negotiables that get you where you are in the daily? Because to operate at the level that you do, you have to be in the right headspace. You have to be able to focus. You have to be able to see vision. You have to be able to get clear on things. What are some things that support you on the daily that enable you to do what you do?
I'd say extreme self-care, and then that looks different at different times. And honestly, I'll be honest, during the Corona period, I definitely let go of my self-care to the point that has me feel amazing. And I'm just newly in the last 3 months back on that track, and it feels so freaking good. So I'm really prioritizing feeling extraordinary. And then that's a lot of things. So from, it's really prioritizing exercise. And that's the thing that dropped off last year for me. So as in, it dropped off, like I was always exercising little bits here and there, but nothing that it was like a total non-negotiable consistency, raising the bar, here's my standard, which that's how it is now. So that's probably the most important thing for me. And then my nutrition is on point these days, which also that wasn't last year. And just like really prioritizing self-care. The other thing that often isn't, I would say, mentioned at this point when a question like that's answered, but it's really important, is boundaries. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. That's a non-negotiable for me, and it's really important to have strong boundaries in all sorts of respects. And I have noticed that every time like we grow and we grow to a new level, often the thing that needs to get reassessed is new boundaries, because the boundaries of the old level don't usually cut it at the new level. So that's interesting, because we're just really growing in a new way at the moment. And I'm just having to reassess, like, how do I have great relationships with people and provide like the things that I want to provide, while also having quite a clean space around me, and having clarity of different things that is really important. I know that probably sounds very vague, but yeah, it's a whole new learning. And sometimes I find, like, we can have a conversation around boundaries and we can have breakthroughs in the area, but then when you go to a new level, you've got to tweak and fine tune an aspect of it. And that's certainly the space I'm in right now, is fine tuning some of those aspects of boundaries.
Yeah. What's funny is that also was touched on at the very end with Dean as well in the call. And I feel like I talk about boundaries a lot. And I think some people confuse boundaries for some things that maybe they're not. For me, a boundary is almost like it's a pre-decided decision around something when I'm not in the situation. So it's not a reactive thought. It's not a response. It's if the situation arises, it's a hard no for me, or it's a yes for me, or that's not going to be in my space, or I'm not going to allow for that energy to come in. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to go, oh my God, what do I do? Should I answer? Like, I don't sit in that indecision. Just like you were saying earlier, you are able to be decisive. And I feel like that's something I've gotten a little bit better at as well, because I already made these boundaries. And it's like, I decided this is what I needed to do in order to move this way in my life. And when I teach boundaries, it's so interesting, because the number one thing that comes up for people are usually excuses around time or their energy, or like this got in the way or that. And it's like, but if you had your boundaries in place, it should have been a little bit easier for you to say, sorry, that's not what I can do right now, or allowing people to suck your time. Yeah, he was saying there's like 4 things that he commits time to, which is his family, his work. And then like there was like 2 other things that were like yeses, but everything else was a no. And he was like, he's unapologetic about what he says yes and no to. 90% of the things he says no to. And I think for people pleasers and a lot of women, we want people to like us. We want to feel like we're like you were telling me the story about running around trying to make your event perfect, saying yes to everything. Yes, it served you well for a second, but at the end of the day, like, you just can't put your energy everywhere. Like, you have to be able to focus if you're going to move the needle in your business, your life, your relationships, or any of that.
Absolutely. And so one of the areas, I'll give you just like an example of where I've seen, like, I've had to like clean up in the last, which was January this year, the big job was January, was essentially I realized, like, oh my God, because I've grown like a really large team. And then what I didn't realize was, now we're at a point where the team is large, but now a lot of my time was spent, so this is past tense, supporting the team. So there wasn't any boundaries around when the team could contact me for questions. And so like throughout my day, I'd be getting little questions here and there. So huge, big shift. One, I put an operations manager in place that took care of all of that, and then had really clear boundaries of what actually gets escalated to Kate, and then how that gets escalated to Kate. So in a way that I only see it when I open up one certain thing, and I open it up every 2 days, and it takes me half an hour of my time to answer anything that is just for Kate. And then also the agreements of where to go before you contact Kate. And that's really important, because what is something that I can uniquely answer versus what can you get within the team, what can you get from the ops manager, what can you research yourself. So yeah, that was about a 6-week cleanup process, and I had to be ruthless and had to employ a part of myself that wasn't nice Kate, And I had to be clear, repetitive, straight, direct. And part of those conversations were challenging. And in that time period, 2 people left the team because they didn't like that new level of relating. So it's really interesting. And I think sometimes, just even that comment, when we go to a new level and we put down different things in place, sometimes not everyone's going to go with you.
No, and to make that relatable for anybody who doesn't have a team or a business, like that can apply to like a just, you're the average person who is just maybe an entrepreneur, or you're working for, say you're in the salon industry, like I am, having boundaries around creating systems in your life. I know systems sound scary and like all of that thing if you don't really know what that means, but basically what she's saying is she had to implement things over and over and over again until everyone around her in her circle understood the level of which she was going to operate, and then they either adapted or they left. And that's how, when you move into a new space and you don't have the energy to be where you used to be, family members, friends, coworkers, clients, like they're the ones that are either going to adjust or they're going to go away. And that just creates room for the magic to happen and new opportunities to come into your life or your business. So I love that you just shared that, and to make it relatable on, maybe a smaller scale for people who don't operate teams, but even for salon owners, it's popping in my head right now. Like, how many times do we go asking questions when we can figure stuff out on our own, right? Like people are so quick to be like, oh, I don't know, help me, versus like, let me figure it out myself,
Absolutely. I worked with a client of mine, was a gym owner, and she had, instructors in her gym, which it could be similar to like a salon sort of a setup. And she was the answer to everyone's question. And so she'd created a relationship that if you wanted something, you come to me. She was exhausted. She couldn't function effectively, just a typical high achieving overfunctioner. And the thing about overfunctioning is it trains people to underfunction around us. So that's just as true in business as it is in families. And I even look at a lot of women who are just super capable with a huge bandwidth. Hello, probably a lot of the women that are listening to this. If we've got a large bandwidth, often we can deal with a lot of balls in the air, and then we naturally start picking up some of the balls for other people around us, including in our family, could be our partners, our kids, our friends, our colleagues, our clients. And then we unknowingly set up this expectation that if you need something, I'm the person for you. So it feels like all roads lead to X person. And then that just really congests time, because then over time people start to underperform.
Yeah. And then that's when the shit really hits the fan.
Yes.
Dang.
Yes.
Oh my God. Kate, I feel like I could talk to you for hours about like productivity, life, like business, all of the things. But I'm watching you. I see you getting your workouts, and you're motivating me. So personally, I just want to say thank you for showing up the way you do, because the world needs more women like you, especially making an impact on other women and helping us just see the light that's inside all of us, because it's all about what you already have inside of you, not what you need to fix or sometimes even create.
Oh, thanks, Jess. I so appreciate that. And can I jump in? I want to say something. So Jess said right at the start of this conversation that we met. She was my coach on the mastermind. And I just want to say, the first time I met you, I'm like, this woman is the real freaking deal. And I just remember thinking, like, initially after like the first 5 minutes of talking, I want to be your friend, because like you're just so incredible behind the scenes as well. And I think, I've interviewed so many incredible people all around the world who are up to stuff. That's not always the case. I think, sometimes people can have like a front persona and then they're different behind the scenes. You're just the real deal through and through. You have such a big heart, and you're amazing. So I just want to say, for anyone listening, Jess is the super freaking real deal, which you probably already know is why you listen to her stuff, but you're amazing. And I'm so glad that we're connected.
Thank you. And if this doesn't just showcase, if you can drop into who you really are and be just the authentic version of yourself, like social media, the world of entrepreneurship is so saturated with people trying to be like each other. Now, there's certain things that we know work, right? You don't need to go reinvent the wheel for, I don't know, sales copy and opt-ins. Like, yeah, copy someone who's killing the game. But you have to show up as your authentic self, because Kate and I could be pitching the same thing, selling the same thing, but we are both individually different humans, and we're going to attract who we're going to attract. And there's enough for everybody to go around. So if you're thinking about starting something, growing something, find a mentor, find a coach, find some inspiration. Kate has an amazing podcast that is highly inspirational. She has epic guests on there. So follow her. And, we always love hearing from you guys. So any things that you want to share, any takeaways that you had from this, please post, rate, review, share, all the things. Kate, what's your Instagram handle? I'm on your thing right now. It's
amazing. Thank you. At Kate Ruby Aroha. Okay. So Kate Ruby and then Aroha is Aroha. I
love that. Beautiful name. I know. I wish I had a fancy name like that. Okay, guys, it is so good to, bring you guests like Kate, because I feel like it up levels me to step up my game. And I hope that you guys found some value in today's podcast, and we will see you on the next one.